This is GoPowerCat.com publisher Tim Fitzgerald. Thank you for listening to this Powercat podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode of the Powercat podcast by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, or your favorite podcast network. And if you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a subscriber to GoPowerCat.com. We cover the Wildcats like no one else, with our VIP customers enjoying one-of-a-kind coverage from our team of professional journalists. And sign up today for an annual subscription to GPC and grab a 30% discount on your first year. And now here's the Powercat Podcast.
The following is a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production. You've discovered your link to GoPowerCat.com's Powercat Insiders Podcast, presented by Commerce Bank, and it starts right now. Now, let's go to the WTC Gig-Powered Studios. Here's your host, GoPowerCat.com publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the Powercat Insiders Podcast. We're inside the WTC Gig-Powered Studios. Tim Fitzgerald. Kellis Robinette of the Kansas City Star, Wichita Eagle. Actually, Wichita Eagle, Kansas City Star. Let's get that right. Matt Walters of that radio thing. The man who broadcasts all day Saturday when the Cats play.
Saturdays are somewhat long, but still usually pretty entertaining.
And Ryan Black. The man from the South.
That is me. I will just turn to Kellis for 1 second. I think he would tell you which Eagle comes first. I think that's actually who's on his paychecks still.
Yes.
So
that's such a weird setup.
Right? Yeah. Wow.
And
my editors are in Kansas City, so.
Yeah. Go figure.
Manhattan Mercury for Ryan Black.
That's me.
And I want to start here, boys. Oh, we're sponsored by Commerce
Bank.
A little bit off my game today. We're sponsored by Commerce Bank. Matt, do your thing.
Commerce Bank has the technology and the people to help with whatever financial challenges come your way. Commerce Bank challenge accepted. Back to you, Fitz.
I want something to read next week.
Oh, we'll give you something.
I'll hand it to you.
Okay.
We've got a second read. You could do it this week. I want to start with you because this is your second year of covering K-State, correct?
Well, second full year.
Right.
Remember, I joined in the middle of 2017.
That's
second
right.
full year.
But football.
Yes.
Did you notice a difference in Saturday's game, not the on-the-field game, the experience, than what you had seen before?
Ooh. Do you mean just specifically from like my perspective as a media member, or if I kind of take my step back and try to like experience more of like how the fans are?
A little both. A little both, yeah.
Well, I mean, geez, the first thing I have to say is that, man, just all of the pregame hip-hop music was something that, was not a thing last year. And I know some people maybe think we make too much of the music, but certainly I think it's what a lot of the players like. I know they were very much into it. I would say that was at least the biggest noticeable difference. I was certainly kind of keeping track of which songs they were playing. I really, personally, I liked the entrance thing with Jordy Nelson, the Riley County Star, who's now retired from the NFL, and someone that we at the Mercury write about a good bit.
Can I throw in something right there?
Please, yeah, please.
What I thought was humorous about all that was that Jordy was holding the door open.
Yeah, he was a glorified doorman. They should have tipped him.
He doesn't need tips.
Well, I know, but
he's doing fine.
Sorry about that.
He'll muddle through.
Why is Jordy the one holding the door open?
I actually thought what was going to happen was he was going to lead the team on the field as some kind of like, celebrity entrance person. And so, like I said, I was a little bit surprised that that's what it ended up being, was he just opened the door. But
got some good screen time out of it, though.
He did, no question. I will say this too, and this might be somewhat of a controversial opinion, but like the entrance video stuff. I mean, I heard a couple of people in the press box who were kind of like, I don't really know what I think of this. In my opinion, as guys, I don't really, in my entire life, there's only one entrance, like kind of sports thing that I can ever remember in terms of it just being that memorable to me, is like the old Chicago Bulls when they were, the Jordan and Pippen era. You had the Bulls running through the city, and then, that announcer comes on and announces the team. But like overall, I'm not someone who really remembers team entrances. I mean, I remember certain things before a game, like, covering Auburn. I mean, they have an eagle that flies around the stadium. I mean, that's pretty memorable. But
and when K-State played there, they didn't fly the eagle.
No, it was disappointing because they had the wires up for the cameras.
Oh, no.
And
I hate
they were
that you guys
afraid it
didn't
would
get to experience that.
cut the Eagle in half because the wires ran right through its flight path.
Man.
The thing that seemed weird to me about Saturday was I was actually going into it more eager to see the pregame stuff just because that's what we'd seen the same process for so long. I kind of thought once the football started it would be kind of dull at that point, but it's kind of the reverse. I was actually underwhelmed with what they did before the game, but then when it started, there were so many more different things, and everybody was having so much more fun than we've seen in the past. That actually was my biggest takeaway, was seeing the players on the field having fun, the players on the sideline having fun, the fans having more fun. It just seemed like everything was more jacked up. You know,
there were just what I was going to say.
There were the one moment I remember was there was a time, I don't remember who scored a touchdown, but somebody scored a touchdown, and one of the social media photographers was down there with their camera, and like 8 players stopped what they were doing and ran over and were taking the camera to look at the stuff and were, high-fiving about it and stuff. And I was joking that Snyder would have cut all 8 of them last year for doing that. And now it's encouraged, so it's great. I love it.
And it wasn't like the Baylor enthusiasm on the sidelines. It was, I would call it controlled enthusiasm. That's, every time K-State scored a touchdown, who's the first guy out at the numbers? Chris Kleiman.
Yep.
Defensively, he was, when K-State did something defensively, he'd get out there as well. So that's exactly what I was going to say. The controlled enthusiasm is what stood out to me, and good for the kids. They were having a great time.
I know, I just want to jump in for 1 second. I know last week Kellis asked one question. No, actually it was you. And then you're like, I don't want to take over your role as moderator. But I did have one question for him that I'm interested in.
Go for it.
Did your job at all change? Was it different for you compared to like what it would have been under previous years with Snyder?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just curious to hear what.
How sweet was that post-game interview? That's what I want to know.
I went into the game, Ryan, from my binoculars thinking, what's this going to be like? Just like fans, what's it going to be like? I didn't pay a lot of close attention to all the pregame stuff. Some of it, I was fired up to see Doc come flying over.
I totally missed that.
Oh, it was
totally
cool.
forgot about it.
It was cool.
Yeah.
And then to see the picture right above the stadium that they took, but I don't want to say there was more leniency for what I do, because some of the principles will remain the same. Like, I'm not going to walk up to Connor Riley and the offensive lineman huddle and just stand there and listen.
Yeah,
that's a no. I'm not going to do that. But it was different. If there was one thing, and I'm going back a while, if there was one thing that Ron Prince did right, that after the ball games we had a quick interview with him before he went up to the media room. Same with Chris Kleiman now. It's awesome. It's quick. He comes right out of the locker room. We're right there, and then we can knock out a couple of players. It helps what we do on the radio side move, and it's, I don't know, I'll call it intimate. It was nice to do that, and coming out of the locker room for the third quarter to talk to Coach for a couple minutes as well.
Well, I have to think the other thing would be too, right, that now you actually could check in to see about the injury stuff, correct? I have to think that was something you weren't allowed to do before. Now you're like, trainer just told me, Scott France, who had the injury that he ended up coming back from in the second half. I'm sure that like last year you wouldn't have maybe been allowed to even ask.
I would have been using my own judgment.
Okay.
So Saturday night, I knew Durham wasn't going to come back because they took his helmet, and I figured just by watching France that he would come back and play. But Coach said right before the second half he'll definitely play.
And from our standpoint, Kellis and Ryan.
Thank you for letting me ask that, by the way. I was just curious.
This is
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Somebody laughed after, or somebody was bragging in the press conference afterward. They're like, "Whoa, did you just hear Chris Kleiman gave Matt an interview on the radio? How awesome is that?" I'm like, "Oh, well, now he does what every other coach in the country does." So.
Coach, to his defense, years ago, Coach Snyder used to do it.
He did? Oh, okay.
And then I could just tell it wasn't me. What really bothered him is when he had TV first, because Coach doesn't stop. Coach doesn't stand still. And I could tell TV person after TV person, don't stop. Just walk with him. So, yeah, it's fun. Coach Snyder just got worn out with it all. I mean, that wasn't near the priority list.
Yeah. And when we requested players for postgame, they showed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was no crossing off players.
There wasn't even a list, I was told. They just walked back and said, we need you, and you. And they said, okay.
Nice. It was all refreshing. I think from our standpoint, professionally, it was refreshing, but mostly for the players and fans, it was a whole new experience and yet a familiar experience. Matt, Kellis, you've been here quite a while too, but Matt, we both remember when it was rolling, when K-State football was really going. That stadium reminded me of that in the first half. It reminded me of those old Bill Snyder games when he'd come out, and it didn't matter who the opening opponent was. His boot was going to be on your throat at halftime. And then typically they had deferred and got the ball to start the second half, and it just made it worse. Mm-hmm. It reminded me so much of that. It was new but familiar, and it was almost like a perfect compromise of old and new.
I just thought it was systematic, and I mean, there weren't 35, 40-yard plays. It was just bang, 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 bang right down the field. Bang, 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 bang right down the field. You know, the A.J. Parker pick. Hope matters. K-State played better than I thought they would. I expected a multitude of mistakes, and there weren't any. There were a few, but not. I thought the tackling might be a question. K-State did a pretty good job of that. It was just cleaner, crisper, and more tidied up than I thought it would be.
I agree. It was
the first half was almost flawless. I mean, if Schoen holds onto that touchdown pass, it is flawless.
It really is.
35-0. The third quarter left a bit to be desired, but I mean, at that point, you're up that big. That's understandable.
That was almost a good learning experience for him. You know, they go in 28-0 and come out and for the first glimpse you saw Nicholls was a pretty decent football team. That's a good FCS team. I mean, that's one of the better ones around. And they look like it on that drive. But you could almost see the team like, oh, we got to keep playing. And then they got back after it. And it was the whole thing was refreshing. I'm very happy for the fan base because you always want to walk this line and not be negative about Coach Snyder, but everything had kind of just gotten stale. It was the same stuff over and over, and there just wasn't the energy, and the energy was back. Let's talk about the game a little bit. I think that's probably important.
The thing that you just mentioned, Fitz, that's the one thing on tape from that game that I think everybody's going to look at, and that is it kind of harkens back to last year's case. They got popped up the middle. They got hit. Nicholls ran on them right up the gut. We're going to see more people do that, or at least attempt to do that, I think.
Yeah, that was the one negative I noticed, and we talked about on our post-game podcast, was they were able to bend back the nose a little bit more than I thought they would and get into the middle of that defense. And when you're playing a light defense on the back end, that causes you problems really quick. If they get past that first line.
Because there are a lot better offensive lines that K-State's going to see.
Absolutely. Bigger, faster, stronger offensive lines.
It was weird looking at those defensive stats. Like I don't know that I've ever been, maybe this is harsh, but less impressed with numbers like that. Only give up 14 points, not very much yardage overall, but their average play was pretty good. I'm not really quite sure how they were so effective on defense other than that just Nicholls was on the field for so little time. They only got, what did they get, 40? Was it 47
plays?
41
plays.
Yeah, that's...
What was the third down conversions, Matt? You got it right there.
Third down conversions, 1 of 6 Nicholls. K-State, a ridiculous 10 of 12.
That was the game. That sums it up. Didn't matter what yardage Nicholls was in. They weren't converting third down.
And what could K-State not do a year ago? Could not convert on third down at all.
It was crazy. We thought Skylar Thompson would be different. You know, we've noticed a difference in him off the field, and everyone said he's going to be different on the field. Kellis, that was a different quarterback.
Yeah, different quarterback, different system. They combined for really good results. I mean, even with the drops he had, he was over 70% completion percentage, 16 of 22. So to think of that and the fact that Malik Knowles drops 2 passes and Dalton Schoen drops 2 passes that all could have gone for touchdowns. I mean, just that. What's his rating if they catch those?
Are you counting the overturn as a drop?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like
tough.
A blatant drop. I'm not going to say Schoen should have caught it, but still, it was right there. At one point, the points were on the board, so it just shows you how much closer he was. And I was just glad to see him in a new system. You know, not having to run up the middle and do all these ridiculous quarterback draws all the time. They actually let him throw the ball, and I mean, that was a dream start for him.
He really only had, if you want to call it a bad throw, he only had one the entire night.
I agree with that.
Now, I don't know if I would even call it a bad throw, just because I'm not sure Malik Knowles ran the route the way he should have. It was in the third quarter, south end zone, where Knowles was in the middle of the field and kind of bent a little. He didn't bend soon enough. I think it was supposed to be a skinny post, and he bent it inside. But
right. That was the only time his passes didn't hit somebody's hand all night.
Was anyone else's head spinning during the first drive trying to keep track of who was on the field?
It was pretty staggering.
I've never seen anything like that. Here comes another personnel set. Oh, Sammy Wheeler's in it. Tight end. No, he's playing receiver. They split him out. And then you got Trotter in the backfield. No, he split out. And you got the bowling ball, Jack Stanine, coming in, and he immediately runs a pass route. And it's like, well, this is insanity. What is happening?
Well, it's funny. I think we all were trying to keep up with it on Twitter, pointing out every new personnel change we saw. But after about the 8th one, it's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
It's going to be a long day if I'm going to point out every single one.
7 plays, 20 different plays.
20, yep.
Craziness.
And you mentioned old school Fitz.
Mm-hmm.
The first drive, just like old school, 12 plays, 72 yards, 6 minutes and 15 seconds.
Mostly running, but enough passing to have effect. But I got my way. First play of the Kleiman era was a handoff right up the middle.
Yep.
It was basically what Bill Snyder would have called. I thought it was kind of funny because you could sense the whole crowd going, oh, crap. That looks exactly like before. And then all hell broke loose, and people were running all over the field. And
what would your preferred first?
That was it. I wanted that. I just thought it's almost like a tip of the cap to Bill.
I wanted the option.
I would have loved a end around handoff to Joshua Youngblood and then a pass to the opposite side.
That would have been Ron Prince's style. That's Ron Prince. It was something else. And running back by committee. Mm-hmm. Not going to work. How's this going to work? Holy cow, did it work? You had 4 running backs get 10 or more carries. That's nuts. And they all look legit. Then none of that was manufactured competition. They all function well together. They're a little bit different, each one of them, but
well I'll just say that, and he scored, and kudos to him. All of them, that was their first, obviously, career touchdowns at K-State, but I will say that, Burns just kind of came in much later, so I'm not sure maybe how I think he's kind of down, below the other three in terms of the actual depth chart. But, I'm interested to see as the season goes on, like maybe, because I don't know if we mentioned him last week. I'll be honest. I don't know if we mentioned Tyler Burns one time because we all were on the Joe Irvin train.
I thought we'd see Irvin in the backfield, but we didn't, and we will.
I think we still might.
We will.
I think he's the true. If they got in a pinch and actually needed somebody later in the season, he's the guy they'd go with.
So kudos to Tyler Burns. I don't want him and his family, if they're listening, if they think I'm knocking him.
That is a part of the Kleiman-Messingham philosophy by using the committee. You would quite often see a fresh guy come in the fourth quarter and just savage a defense because they're worn out and he's brand new. And that does work. It's funny. I went back and looked at the stats, and Gilbert was, clearly at 118?
115.
115, yeah.
I'm a liar. 115. And yet, I didn't think he looked that much better than everyone else. He just kind of had more opportunities. I don't know
they
what
all
to say
look great.
about it. Exactly. They went from no running backs to having a crew of them that they could all play. They really did.
Well, I know I've written about it and talked about it with people before. I don't know if I've ever seen any position group on any team I've ever covered more gutted than that running back group from the end of last season heading into now, and to see what they did Saturday is just remarkable.
Kudos to the offensive line.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, it's going to get a lot tougher. Certainly in 2 weeks it'll be a lot tougher. But that offensive line was moving them. It was a mismatch. But last few years, the line would have mismatches and not be that effective. So I don't know what the difference is in what Connor Riley's getting them to do or how he's going about it, but it worked. That line looked really good.
And he was able to play plenty of guys, too.
But we saw the philosophy of playing different positions. Scott Franz goes down. they just shuffled some pieces, and boom, they're fine. They still were using 5 of their top 6 linemen, and they were just in some different spots. It was good to see. I mean, if there's one spot that needs to be cleaned up, it's that receiving core, which we all kind of knew. You just can't have those drops when your quarterback's playing that well. It's almost like errors in the field when your pitcher's doing really well and you keep bobbling the ball behind him. It's going to bite you. It's going to come back.
It did seem interesting to me that Skyler threw the ball and targeted receivers like he thought Malik Knowles was the number one guy. You could tell he kind of went out of his way to get the ball to him, and it's kind of interesting that it didn't work out a bunch because he would be open and he should have had 2 touchdowns and he didn't haul them in. And like Matt said, maybe he ran the wrong route on the one time where Skyler misfired, but yeah, that's definitely, if there's one weakness on the offensive line right now, on the entire offense right now, receiver.
But it takes pressure off when they're going to throw the ball so much to running backs and tight ends. That watching them manipulate the defense as a football guy was really refreshing, and that too reminded me of old Bill Snyder. I'm going to move my pieces around because then you're going to move your pieces around.
And then checkmate.
And then, yeah, I've got your pieces where I want them.
And I didn't really feel like they even had as much just misdirection as they typically did in North Dakota State either. So that's still to come.
I had a couple people say, don't fall for everything's on the table. We're not going to be vanilla. That was their version of vanilla. That they didn't show nearly what they're going to show. They just put enough out there, and it was fairly simple by their schemes what they did.
I was going to say, Kellis, the one other thing you could say that took away from me almost perfect first half was the missed field goal by Blake Lynch. Not that I'm worried about him, but that was his only opportunity on the night, and he didn't.
And Devin Anctil didn't even get the punt.
Yeah, didn't even get a punt.
I mean, the special teams is just in the toilet right now.
But like I said, with all the touchdowns, Anctil got to really state his case for the Mortel Award quite a few times.
Well, that's true.
That's nice. Yeah. He did an excellent job holding.
Oh, I'd say perfect.
I would say Kansas State has one of the more...
From an outsider's perspective, I would say it looked as good as I've ever seen.
One of the more athletic punter holders in the country, because that guy's a good athlete. I just know they've got something planned for that, too. I mean, it's not your typical punter back there. Well, Nick Walsh was a pretty good athlete himself, but...
And a singer.
Yes, he is. He's a very good singer. Let's just take a break. Let's go to a break real quick. Kellis has got to take off. He's got other things besides talking to us. I don't know why. I mean, we seem to be nice enough fellas, but Kellis seems to think he has work to do.
Well, family's got some Labor Day plans.
That I'll accept.
AKA a cookout.
That will be over. We'll all be over. And there goes your party right there.
All right.
Matt and Fitz shows up.
We're moving the address then.
This is the Powercat Insiders Podcast on GoPowercat.com. Kellis is out. Matt and Ryan and I will be right back.
Stay locked in. The Powercat Podcast will be right back.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
Is your January looking dry? Get some lotion. get a humidifier. And better yet, get Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. With Drizzly, you can compare prices across local stores to get the best price on a huge selection of drinks perfect for dry January. Every single time. Non-alcoholic wines? Have a look. Ready-made mocktails? Grab a straw and order 'em up. Beer without the alcohol? Yep, take your pick. You can find all of them here, in the app, in that phone that's in your hand. Could it be any simpler? Nope, not a chance. So shop for great deals on all your dry January beverages or other drinks and get them delivered to your door or blanket fort, maybe. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations. And don't forget to lotion up your elbows. They're looking a little dry.
We now send it back to Fitz in the WTC gig-powered studios.
We're back on the Powercat Insiders Podcast, gopowercat.com. We kicked Kellis out. Now we're going to talk about it. It's Labor Day. I appreciate you guys coming in.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's awesome.
My cat was furious, but he'll be fine. I fed him.
What is your cat's name?
Sonny. Sonny the cat.
Sonny. Do you ever call him that? Like the song? Is that too old? You don't know that song? Okay. Okay.
I don't want to say no.
What kind of cat?
He's like an orange tabby cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
A feral wildcat.
Yeah.
Well, I did adopt him, so I guess you could say he is somewhat. But I've tamed him.
Did you adopt him here, or did he come with
no,
you?
he came from Georgia.
Does he have a southern accent, too?
No, it's
That is
meow.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it'd be a drawl. Sure. I hope that was a good answer.
Our sponsor
Let's not get so far off track.
is Commerce Bank. Here's Matt.
Life is full of big moments, or I should say life is full of moments, both big and small. Commerce Bank has the technology and the people to help with whatever financial challenges come your way. Commerce Bank, challenge accepted.
I'm out of topics. No, the defense, we just didn't get much.
There's one you didn't get into on the offensive side.
Bring it on.
John Holcomb.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure. I don't even need to say I'm sure it's in there. There's upside there. I just hope between the years it happens. But him running the football took me back, probably took both of you back as well. That's a nice weapon potentially this year.
That's going to be a goal line weapon. I don't see any way that's not your Wildcat quarterback if you want to use that.
It could also be a weapon, I think, if you've got the football and let's say you're around midfield and there's 4 minutes to go. Nothing against obviously Brown and Gilbert and K-State's running backs, but if you're trying to salt the game away, maybe you haven't shown it really in a big game, let that get you a couple of first downs and ice it.
Yep. Yeah, when we see him in practice or interviews, he's a big dude. There's no doubt. When you see him in full pads at the quarterback position, carrying the ball, that's frightening. Mm-hmm. That has to be frightening for a defense.
Especially if he gets to the next level. If he's getting by the linebackers, hello corners, hello safeties, they don't want any part of that.
Also, the other thing I think gives you the potential for is if you ever want to run any kind of trick plays where you split him out wide and throw it to him, and then you just kind of go from there with whatever you're wanting to do on that play.
You're right. I mean, there's so much we have to learn yet about how they're going to use their players, use their systems, and will they do two quarterbacks on the field at once? I don't feel like anything's off the table with this bunch, and it's not like they're going to be. It's not like it's gimmicky at all. What they did on Saturday was very traditional football. It's so odd to see it. It seems gimmicky. You don't see that anymore. The shifting, the tight ends, the fullbacks.
There were times when they let the play clock get down to 3 or 2, and then there were times where they snapped it with 16, 17 seconds on the clock. Did I say shot clock?
No, you
said the clock.
Okay, play clock.
You went back and then said shot clock, so then you caused a mistake.
You did, technically. You did say it.
I hope I didn't say shot clock, but that's why I use the words crisp and clean. The first half was, there was good communication in and out of the huddle. Let's get to the line of scrimmage. The only issue that I really saw on the sideline at times, which again you expect, were personnel groupings. That first time out was called, I think, because Mason Barta was supposed to be out on the field and wasn't. But that was really the only issue I thought was some personnel grouping.
That's kind of funny. They ran into the line on the first play, and then they have to call a timeout because something got screwed up. I'm like, oh, this nothing's different here. And then everything was different after that. I have to say this. I've watched a lot of football in my life, and I'm the son of a football coach, so I know a little bit about football. I was too big of a wuss to actually play, honestly. It hurt to play.
Carry on.
But that subtle little thing they did with the tight end fullback shift, where the fullback would line up at tight end, the tight end would line up at fullback, and then they'd switch ends. Then the tight end goes up to the other end of the line, the fullback goes back to the fullback spot. You just shift the weight of your offense without moving a player all the way across the field, which is what the defense has to do. It's subtle, it's beautiful, and it messed with Nicholls. Now it's on film, but you still have to account for it. You still have to figure out how you're going to move a player suddenly when the weight of the offense shifts. Your strong side goes flipping instantly right before they snap the ball. It was little things like that were just so elegant and well thought out.
And we just saw the very tip of the iceberg.
Well, and to your point on that, Fitz, about now it's on film, so teams are going to know how to, I don't want to say stop it, but know how to prepare for it and game plan. But that's where, and to use that word that's so cliche for football, but it's like where execution comes down to it, right? Teams know that, whoever it may be is going to run the ball 50 times, but if you don't know how to, if you can't physically stop it doesn't matter. I can know what's coming, and I'm certainly not going to be able to stop it because I'm not, physically of the kind of stature that's going to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, if you can execute it well enough, it doesn't really matter if the other team knows what's coming.
I'm not sure we're going to see much added to the palette this weekend because Bowling Green might be, even though they had a nice win and it was impressive, they might be a lesser opponent.
Yeah.
I think Nicholls might probably
That's honest
would beat them.
Truth.
You wanted to talk defense.
Yeah, but I guess where I'm going with this is I think when they go to Mississippi State, we're going to see some things come out, including a 3 running back formation. They showed the triangle, but they will show that with all 3 running backs, the top 3 guys.
Maybe we'll see the T.
I would love that. I would love that.
I haven't seen that in college. We haven't seen it in can't tell you how long.
Well, wait, I just do want to make one more point for you. I guess we move to the defense is that, and I actually tweeted this right at the beginning of the game, is I'm so thankful. Probably in my entire life, I've never been more happy I didn't end up writing a story because I was going to write this story about, based off the depth chart last week, we thought that Joaquin Gill had won a starting job and that Malik Knowles was going to be Dalton Schoen's backup. Joaquin Gill is not out there on the first play, doesn't register a catch in the game, and I'm like, well, I'm glad I did not, really light him up and just brag all over him, and then people are like, wow, he looked really stupid, Ryan.
Would we have ever thought Landry Weber would be a starter?
How about that?
And that really, to me, that wasn't about this guy or that guy earned it. It was, this is the first play call, and this is the personnel that goes with it.
And part of that was because Joaquin Gill is dinged up.
There we go.
Oh. Well, look at that.
That's why we invite you.
I mean, he's
got a little bit of news in the podcast.
I would compare it to Scott France. I mean, when France left the field on Saturday, he didn't take the gator. I mean, that's my assumption is that he's dinged up. I mean, he was out there during pregame warmups, but when France left the field, he walked into the locker room, came back out. I mean, it looked to me like Gill was moving okay. My guess is that he's just not at 100%. That's why he didn't play in that game.
Okay, so that's a guess. That's not
that's just a guess on my part.
All right.
No, defensively we didn't see much.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have much opportunity. 41 plays. That's craziness. Yeah. I mean, they had a couple touchdown drives, but I felt sorry for the Nicholls offense. It's hard to come back if you're not on the freaking field, and they just weren't on the field. It's 28-0. Think about that. K-State scored more points in the first half than they ran plays. It was insane.
And they didn't have their best running back, which that didn't help matters at all for them.
Yep.
I give Nicholls credit. I mean, we see it all the time, not to totally go off course here, but they've played at least one FBS team. Usually they play two. They've done that since 2005. They got to get the paycheck. There's some FCS teams that don't mind taking it for the team, so to speak. But still, as much as they've done it, kudos to them.
Georgia State wasn't satisfied with that. They took the money and won.
Exactly.
Sorry about that, Tennessee.
You can't mess around with these teams anymore. You just can't mess around with them.
And look at the first three games of the day Saturday in the Big 12. KU fortunate to get out against Indiana State. Iowa State goes to
they should have lost
triple overtime. Yep. They got a very fortuitous play at the end of overtime number 3 with the fumble. They punch it in.
I still don't know how he got that ball.
I know that was Brock Purdy got on that quickly, and then what was the
James Madison, West Virginia.
James Madison, yeah. I mean they've given West Virginia some fits over the years.
Well, let's talk about this. The fact that Las Vegas established Kansas State as a 23.5-point favorite, I thought they were crazy. But West Virginia was a single-point favorite over James Madison. Now, I bring that up for this fact. That indicates to me Las Vegas bought Chris Kleiman. They believed in Chris Kleiman. Because that's the only explanation you could have for that spread. Because Nicholls could be the best of the group that played. Nicholls might be the best FBS team to have played a Big 12 team on Saturday. Might be. We'll see how the season plays out.
I would say probably James Madison.
Yeah, James Madison.
I feel like outside of North Dakota State, they've maybe been the best FCS program out there the last decade.
The only other one I would throw out there is Eastern Washington.
Yeah, Eastern Washington as
well.
well.
And they got plowed by Washington.
Yep.
But the last couple of times they'd played the Huskies, both games were decided by less than a touchdown. And one of them had a combined, I think it was 111 points. So Eastern Washington, there's a handful. You got North Dakota State, Eastern Washington, the Dukes of James Madison, Nicholls is up there, and there are probably a couple others we're leaving out. But Nicholls is going to have a good season. You watch.
Oh, yeah.
South Dakota State.
South Dakota, yeah. Really, all the Dakota schools, really.
Yeah, but as it turns out, South Dakota, the team K-State played last year, was the least of the Dakota schools. They weren't very good last year.
South Dakota State's usually better than South Dakota.
And, South Dakota State, I mean, heck, they only lost by a touchdown to Minnesota.
Maine's typically
Maine.
Good. How come all these really cold weather schools are good in FCS? It's just interesting. Defensively, they said they were going to do everything they wanted to do. They weren't going to hold anything back, but boy, they held stuff back. They just didn't do much. They didn't do much stunting. They brought some blitzes, but there was just no purpose in it. Once they got that quick 14-0 lead, I mean, the poor Colonels had run 2 plays and they're down 14-0. Why? Why so much on defense?
Didn't have to.
So there's some questions there. You mentioned the first half. They've got a problem in the middle that they had to go. They were going to have to go solve that. I don't know why. That shouldn't be a problem. They should be pretty good in the middle, but they were getting bent back pretty good, and I thought they moved. When Nicholls did score, they were moving around K-State's linebackers with motion and stuff and getting them out of position, and that just left the vacated middle. There just wasn't no one there. So that's going to be a problem. We still don't know about that secondary, but I like the posture they took. They just looked like at the snap of the ball, they wanted to be on the offense, if that makes sense. The defense wanted to control the game, as opposed to the past years where the defense had gotten so passive. It was just impossible for I can't imagine the mentality of that defense in the past, where you're constantly letting people complete passes. And this time they were like, you know what? We're going to just stop you. You're getting off the field, and we're going to go sit over there and rest.
They're like, come my way. I want to make the play.
And Jonathan Alexander, welcome to the Big 12. That looked like an old school play. Oh, you're going to show me the ball? Here, I'll just take it from you.
Yeah, no, that was I think the highlight of the second half. To be honest with you, maybe you guys would disagree. I think that was the play that I'll certainly remember the most going forward.
It was It was a fun day. It was a fun day at the Bill, and Whitney Snyder had a remarkable photo of her father standing there overlooking the field. It was really cool.
And I opened our network broadcast by, in essence, just saying, "This is the house that Bill built, Coach. Thank you.
Yeah,
you're not on the sidelines, but thank you. This is because of you."
Everything in due time, due course. All of it's because of him, and yet it was time to move on. And by all outward appearances, moving on is going to be okay. But we have to pause and say, it's one game.
It is, yeah.
It is.
It's one game. If in a couple weeks we're doing a show about a third victory, all hell's going to break loose in Wildcat Nation. If they can go down to Mississippi State and win. But even that's getting greedy. Even that, if they just go down there and acquit themselves in a better manner than the team did last year on the home field, that will be encouraging.
And let's just be, I mean, that Mississippi State team this year is not the one that came here last year.
No. You could watch the NFL draft and understand that, A, that was a really good team K-State played talent-wise, and B, they lost a lot of really good players.
Yeah, the defensive line is not going to be anywhere near as ferocious as it was last year.
I had a post-game caller that was very excited after that, and this is kind of the measuring stick, and I said, no, it's not. Wait 2 weeks. I mean, Mississippi State is not what we saw last year, but still, you're going there. It could be 93 degrees and 93% humidity, and that's the measuring stick right now. What K-State does that day down in Starkville will give us much better of an idea what they're going to be like this season.
Well, and like I said, I mean, it'll be the very first road game under Chris Kleiman and his coaching staff, and the whole. You guys will be ready to talk and write a lot about the whole cowbell stuff at Mississippi State. Such a big deal that they clang them all the time during the game, so that'll be something. But I honestly think that the Oklahoma State game will be a bigger one, just because, like I said, I don't think as much of Mississippi State this year. But like I said, you can never downplay the fact that, hey, it is the first road game. It's going to be at an SEC opponent. Should be a sold-out game. So it'll be a great test. I'm just saying that I think in terms of just the quality of the teams, I think Oklahoma State will be a better barometer. Just in my opinion, we can disagree.
Offensively, yes. Defensively, I'm not sure. They gave up 36 in Corvallis.
They're going to have problems with K-State's running game. Mm-hmm. They really are. They're using a 3-4. I don't think 3-4s fit the college game unless Marcus Watts texted me watching that game and said, unless you're Alabama or Clemson and you're getting NFL-level talent, you cannot run a 3-4 in college. You just don't have the horses to do it. And it's hard to run at the NFL. You got to have the right guys in the NFL. So I think K-State's running game is going to really give Oklahoma State. They've built their defense around, I'm going to give them problems. They built their defense around the spread, stopping Oklahoma to some degree, but they also have a running game. And they looked all right.
Mm-hmm. If K-State goes to Starkville and wins, Oklahoma State's going to be thinking, because remember what Skylar Thompson did to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And K-State gets the week off.
I would say, and K-State gets the week off.
I'm telling you guys, I just got to think that a lot of people who voted in that poll and picked K-State 9th watched that game and watched not just the dominance but the efficiency and with which they played. 2 penalties, no turnovers. Played a lot of guys and got to be going, well, maybe I should have voted them a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And but again, we come back to one game, 11 more to go. This is a long journey, but so far everything Chris Kleiman is doing seems to be working. The team is loose, the team is confident, and the team is really, really united. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Right.
And just to, again, piggyback off that, okay, it's just 1 week, but man, talking to all the players and coordinators and coaches, that didn't seem to just give away a lot of info to the opponent.
No.
So the media, open up the media access didn't seem to, like I said, give Nicholls the right game plan.
I know.
It's shocking.
I know. It's
Clemson's won national championships being a fairly open program. Can you believe that?
Wow.
It's possible.
what strikes me as ironic is the fact that Bill Snyder created all these systems to limit distractions, and in a way, that in itself became a distraction.
Yeah.
That it just was so rigid, it became a problem for the program, an annoyance.
Well, and I know Snyder was not as much about this as some of these other college coaches are, but I've always, and this is just something I strongly believe. I'm not going to go on a rant, but I'll just say that so many of these college coaches, they go into these recruits' homes and they want to talk about, hey, I'm going to get you prepared for the NFL. Just look at my track record. So many of these coaches then don't let these players talk to the media. Well, hold on, guys. What's one of the commitments of an NFL player?
Exactly.
They got to talk to the media. So I want to know these coaches, how is that preparing this young man to go into the NFL?
Or life.
Yeah.
Or life. I mean, that is one of the greatest skills you can develop as a player, is to be able to sit there and answer questions and do so intelligently and, not reveal too much. It's kind of an art you need to learn.
So it's just something I feel strongly about, that's all.
Well, when people ask me who are my favorite players, it's easy to rattle off the Bishops, the Kleins, the Darnell McDonalds, the Darren Sproles, but the guys that showed up when it was good and the same guys that showed up when it was bad. Guys like Ben Lieber. You mentioned him earlier, Fitz. The guys that, whether they were a captain or not, they may have not been a captain and still been a leader, but when they showed up, when they pounded somebody, and then if they got kicked in the backside themselves, they were the first guys there. They didn't miss any of that.
Yep. Ian Campbell was that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was something I did appreciate about Snyder was saying that, well, hey, guys, I'm not going to necessarily make you go, but, if you're going to go when we win, you need to go talk to the media when you lose, too, which I appreciate.
I agree. Well, we'll reconvene next week, hopefully after another impressive victory. It should be. This time we don't have to stay up late to cover it. We get to go to bed early, Ryan. That's become important to me.
Well, I was saying maybe we'll just bring in Kellis for the second half next week. He can just come in at 3, some other later time so he can just do half and half.
I am going to dock him half of his pay.
You should. Can I take it? Can you give it to me?
Yes.
We can split it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're Go Powercat bucks. They can be spent in our store. We don't have a store, but that's how that works. Well, that's it for this week's edition of the Powercat Insiders Podcast, brought to you by Commerce Bank. We'll be back next week, and we will feature Kellis Robinette doing one of the Commerce reads.
Maybe.
But we'll see.
It's very exciting.
If he shows up.
It's very, very exciting.
You've been listening to the Powercat Insiders Podcast, presented by Commerce Bank. Powercat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.